Good evening, and we're underway with our regular meeting of the Helotes City Council. It's March 8th, 2018, and it is 7 p.m. Before we get started on our agenda, I'd like to welcome some scouts that are here. We're very lucky to have scouts at just about every meeting. Tonight, we have Troop 945 that meet normally at Northwest Crossing Elementary. Stand up, guys. Let everybody see you. Welcome to the meeting. We always offer the ability for you guys, if you stay for the whole meeting, to come up later and ask questions of council. We'd be glad to help you out. Are you working on citizenship, community service badges, or what? Both those? Great. Well, good luck to you. Thanks again. Okay, we'll start off our agenda tonight with our invocation. Okay, anybody who didn't get a form, go ahead and fill it out, and you're welcome to hand it in to the city secretary. Just don't take too long, if you would. We'll start with the invocation. Tonight, Councilmember Massey will do the invocation, and then we will have the pledges to the United States and the Texas flag. So if you would please stand for the invocation.
Dear Lord, thank you for this day and the beautiful weather we've been having. We ask for your continued blessings on our staff, elected officials, and fire and police forces. Especially watch over our fire and police department employees who put their lives in danger for our citizens. Tonight, we ask for wisdom as we deliberate during our meeting. Help us to make the right decisions for our community with courtesy and consideration. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Well, once again, before we get started, I'd like to tell you it's exciting to have you all here. We hope that you enjoy participating in the meeting tonight. It's always nice. It's been a long time since we've had an item that's brought any community interest, so it's always interesting to see how government works, and it's going to be good for the scouts too to understand that citizens always have the ability to come up here and speak to the council on matters concerning them and the way the city is working. So again, welcome to all of you, and we'll get started with our public hearing. I would like to just tell you a few guidelines for a public hearing. Anyone can speak if they sign up, and you're limited to 3 minutes, and 3 minutes only, and the time will start. We'll have the countdown clock right up there. When you come to the podium, please state your name and address, and the time will start, and you have your 3 minutes. And typically, we do not extend the time, so get it done, and if your time expires, I'll let you know, and you'll ask to be seated. If you would, be courteous to the speakers. If you don't agree with something that's being said, keep it to yourself. We don't appreciate, nobody does, people interrupting the meeting. In fact, it's against the rules. It's against the law, actually. So be civil and just listen to the people that are speaking, and then once they're done, we'll get on with the meeting. And the way I'm going to do this tonight, we have some people that are supporting the public hearing and some that are opposed to the item. And so the way I typically do this is we'll start with tonight, since there are more in opposition, a person that's opposed to it, and then we'll go with a person that supports it, and then we'll just alternate back and forth. And that's always the fair way to do it. And let me make an adjustment here in my arrangement. Okay.
May I ask a procedural question?
Sure.
I'm representing the applicant, Forest Hills and Verizon. I have a short, brief presentation on PowerPoint. Should I wait till after the public hearing to do that? Because it's very important. to go through.
Actually, I doubt we'll address that. You should have everything available. You should have let us know sooner.
We have let you know sooner. I think Rick has a copy of it, and your city secretary can.
I didn't know about it.
I'm
so
sorry?
I didn't know about it. So I doubt we'll let you do that, but I appreciate you bringing it. We'll see how the public hearing goes. Okay, well, good grief. Okay, that's the last one. Okay. I'm going to open this public hearing at 7:06. I'm required to read this public hearing notice, so we'll get that out of the way, and then we'll start the speakers. This public hearing, again, starting at 7:06, is to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on a request by Verizon Wireless for a specific city council-approved use permit for the construction of a telecommunications tower and a variance to Chapter 98 zoning, Article 11, telecommunications facilities, Section 98-368, standards for transmission towers and antennae, authorizing a reduction in the required separation distance of 2,000 feet between telecommunications towers on property zoned Neighborhood Services District B2 and located at 13218 Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas, 78023, more particularly described as BCAD property ID number 242513. Okay, actually, the first speaker that signed up, well, they weren't the first ones, but they're the only neutral. So I'm going to call on them first. Stephen Grabhorn. Grabhorn? Oh, Graham? Okay, Graham. Gotcha. Please state your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes, and we appreciate you being here.
My name's Stephen Graham. I live at 10615 Bar X Trail, across from the property where they're going to be putting up the tower. I have some concerns. I can see the stakes from every window in my house, and I'm a little concerned about the tower being there and how it will affect me or my property values. But there's some other issues. Thank you. There's some other issues that I was thinking about. The area where they're putting the tower is right behind the Exxon station, and that's kind of a swampy area, and I was curious how they were going to anchor the tower if they do get the variance, and you know, how they're going to set the foundation for it, and how, since everybody that lives around here, they know that every time there's blasting over at Vulcan, it shakes your house. You see the dust coming out from the roof and stuff. And, you know, Vulcan was here before my house was built. I'm not real sure I want anything else blasting around me, you know, after my house is built. Once we put that up, we are setting a precedent for the city. I was looking at the presentation the other day, and I thought there were 2 other sites that might be considered better. If Verizon would like to step up a little bit, have their tower a little bit higher than AT&T's, maybe on the north side of the Cage building, further down Bandera Road. That's a rocky area, and it has a lot of trees and might be better for them to hide it. The other area would be here at the city complex. I know I heard that was under discussion, and maybe that should be revisited, having all the utilities over in this area. And that's it. That's all I got, guys.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Next up, Amy Garrett. Welcome, Amy.
Hi. Hello. Hi, I'm Amy Garrett. I live at 14311 Circle A Trail. And I am opposed to the tower. And I know that I'm not the only one. I have an online petition here with 49 signatures from our neighborhood, from Helotes Park Estates, who are all opposed to the tower. We believe, among some of the reasons, that it's going to hurt our property values. It's going to really detract from the neighborhood. And I wouldn't want to buy a house. If that tower was there, I would not have bought my house in Helotes Park Estates, for example. I think there's other options, and I think other solutions can be found. I'm sympathetic to the church's need for revenue, and I'm willing to donate to the church to help them out with their facilities, but I don't want the tower to be the way they get, the tower is at our expense, so I don't think that's the solution.
Thank you. If you would like to give your information to Selena?
Yes.
For the permanent record, we'll certainly take it. Next up, we have Margie Cox.
Actually, I just found out that I'm not eligible to speak because I'm outside the ETJ.
Actually, anyone can speak at a public hearing, so if you have some input and want to speak, go ahead. That requirement's just for our citizens to be heard.
Good evening, I'm Margie Cox, and I am a member of Forest Hills Church. And I just want to say that I have been there since 1965, and it's been my pleasure to serve in a church that is always reaching out to the community and beyond. Sometimes we can support organizations, and sometimes we can't, but even when we can't, we still manage to do that somehow. We don't exclude anybody. We have the facilities, we're going to make it usable to anybody.
Thank you. Next up, we have Sean. Is it? Okay, great.
I'll spare you. My name is Sean Carranza. I reside at 13406 Flying W Trail in Helotes Park Estates. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, I'd like to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address you and the audience today. I'm here to express my opposition in the building of the cell phone tower at the entrance of our neighborhood. I moved to Helotes about 7 years ago because I fell in love with the small town feel of the neighborhood in Helotes Park Estates. And that love has just continued to grow as I've established relationships with the neighbors and the people of this community. I've recently gotten married, and I hope to raise my children in the same neighborhood. However, I'm here today because I want to express my concern that the recent developments and establishments are taking away from the small town feel that originally brought me here. I've already seen a Walmart built, and in turn, bring in many small chain businesses that I never expected to be in this area. Now I've told that a large cell tower might be built at the entrance of our small town neighborhood, and to be honest, I'm quite upset by this. I'm confident that I speak for the people of my community when I say we do not want to see a large metal tower every time we enter into our quaint little neighborhood. More importantly, I'm very concerned with the health effects that long-term exposure from the electromagnetic radiation emitted from this tower may have on the residents of Helotes Park Estates. Accredited studies have already shown that microwaves from these towers can cause headaches, memory loss, cardiovascular stress, low sperm count, birth defects, and cancer. So ladies and gentlemen of the council, I urge that you listen to the members of this community that are directly affected by this tower, that you listen to the generation that helped build and keep the small town feel of our beloved neighborhood, and that you listen to the next generation that will continue to keep Helotes a unique, small town that I fell in love with, and that you vote against this variance. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Sean. Next up, Reverend Reuben Lashley. Welcome.
Mayor Schoolcraft, esteemed members of the council. My name is Reuben Lashley. It is my privilege to serve in this community as the pastor of Forest Hills Presbyterian Church. I understand this is a heated and controversial issue. I understand that there are a variety of opinions that are held by the people that are here. I understand that at times it's hard to make these decisions. It's hard to say yes and to say no. Today I had to do something that was very difficult. It's something that's difficult I have to do in my job, and that is to attend a funeral of one of my parishioners' mothers. Now, that individual didn't go to our church. My parishioner does. Her mother attends Zion Lutheran. And so I just came in from out of town, and I could have given a lot of reasons to not go. One reason I could have given to not go is because my shoes are broken. I've got a hole in one of my shoes, and I really could have taken the time today to go and get that repaired. But in a strange way, that's why I love my church. It's why I love Forest Hills Presbyterian Church, because a lot of times they could have said no. When Our Lady of Guadalupe came and said, hey, we need a place for our youth to be able to play in a basketball gym because we don't have one, we could have said no, but we said yes. When the Helotes Area Community Band comes to us and says, hey, we would like a space to be able to provide seasonal concerts for people in this community, we could have said no, but we say yes. When the Alcoholics Anonymous group comes and says they have no money to be able to give in a space, but they still want it and need it, we could have said no, but we say yes. When Marina Sin wanted to start a Spanish language immersion program and had very little money to do it, we could have told her no, but instead we chose to say yes. We've said yes because we believe in our call to be a vital part of this community. But saying yes takes a toll. It takes a toll on our property, it takes a toll on our building, it takes a toll on our resources. There have been numerous accidents at that entrance right by the Exxon station that leads into this community that everyone's talking about. And every time there's an accident, the city of police shut down Bandera Road, and instead, they route people through our church parking lot. And many times people that come through from that neighborhood use our church parking lot as a side street. It tears up our parking lot. We end up having to refill it and put in new pavement to fill in those potholes to fix the things that need to be fixed. And if anybody is here that's interested in helping us in fixing those, I'll put a small plug. We have a church work day coming up this Saturday at 9 a.m., and if you'd love to come, we'd love to have you. This project will provide us with the resources that we need to develop a strong infrastructure. One of my biggest concerns when I come down here on this road is seeing these runners come up and down Bandera Road. We talk about the infrastructure, the development, the things that are moving on. My proposal would be that we could take that 2.5 acres and where that cell tower would be put to use and zone off the rest of that space. Maybe we could create a park, a space for runners to be able to go and stay off the main road and avoid any future accidents. My hope is that you can share this vision with us and with my church. I hope that you will say yes. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good, right at 3 minutes. Alan Holmes. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and council members, I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. I'm going to say right off the bat, I am very much opposed to the construction of a cell tower right at the entrance to Helotes Park Estates. I have to tell you, Helotes Park Estates does not have the prettiest entrance of any neighborhood, major neighborhood in the city of Helotes. You can drive up 16 North and you see these big, beautiful, nice neighborhoods going in, and they have stone entrances with a big sign and lights. We don't have that, probably because of the age of the neighborhood itself. We would like that. But what we don't want is something added to the area that doesn't look well. And this cell tower would not look nice right at the entrance to Helotes Park Estates. The other reason I'm opposed to it is because of the property values, the decline in the property values, and several people have already mentioned that. And I was online reading several things about property values, and I read on a site by National Association of Realtors that roughly 75% of the people interviewed said they would not buy a property where there was a cell tower within view of their proposed home. And that's their decision. If the tower were to be built, I wouldn't have that opportunity not to buy my house or to build a house. I've already done that. So now if you approve the variance, then I was without a voice. I would not have bought the property if I'd known there was a cell tower just to be built very close to me. My home is within 1,800 feet of the proposed location. It is actually due west of my house, and unfortunately, my house faces due west, or almost due west. So I would be looking at it every morning when I leave my house, or walk out the front door, and I'll probably be doing that for the rest of my life. It's not something I want to see. Then, it's already been mentioned, the health issue. I understand that in many cases, the jury's still out on the health issues, that maybe it's dangerous to health, maybe it's not. But why take the chance? Why subject the residents of Helotes Park Estates to a possible health situation? The last thing I want to say is, right now, as I understand it, there is a code against the construction of cell towers within Helotes Park Estates. And my question to the council would be, why do we have codes if we're going to grant a variance? We moved here because of the code, and if the code continues to be ignored, as I have seen in other, I hate to use the term ignored, but not honored, by other people that have asked for a variance and it was granted, I wasn't happy about that in Helotes Park Estates. So my question is, why do we have a code if we're going to continue to grant variances? Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Very good. Thank you, Alan. Next up, Vincent G., help me out, Hubinger?
Yes, sir.
Hubinger.
I have a lot of ground to cover, Mayor, Council. Thank you for hearing me. Represent the church and Verizon.
You have 3 minutes.
I know, real quickly, as soon as I can. We have a couple of things here. First, I'm not sure the neighbors know that it's a stealth cross or a stealth facility such as Planning Commission talked about. It would blend in with and be similar to the one you have on City Hall right behind us, 145 feet, would be 25 feet shorter than that. Values, I've done my own studies over the years. I've been in this industry for a long time. I have not seen any values decreased in any of the cases over a 10-year period, looking at market conditions and stuff of that nature. But first and foremost, or secondly, I guess, we do everything we can not to build a new structure. We go through hoops in amazing situations. We try rooftops. We try everything we can. That was our first priority, that one behind the wall over here. We tried to get on that one. It's owned by Crown. It's completely full with AT&T. It may have a spot for one small antenna left, and you have no ground space. So we came to the city and said, what can we do? We can't build on that one. Can we build another one? So that was batted around the city for a while, and we were told there was no support for that. So we have to move on. We have to find some kind of zoning situation like this commercial site over here next to the Exxon and try to make this work. We propose a stealth cross similar to that. We would be entertain a flagpole or a stealth unipole, but the fact of the matter is we need the coverage. Verizon has a capacity issue. It's created by the smartphones. You're running multiple apps every time you walk out the door, and that tower is getting clogged up with infrastructure. There's only so much phone capacity that site has, so you have to have some infill, and this is one of the infill. The target is O'Connor High School. There's huge demand there. It's also behind this neighborhood the gentleman, Mr. Holmes, is talking about. There's some in-building coverage problems over there too. So this would create a better, safer community environment, and we looked at a lot of sites, went through 7 or 8 different projects, site tracks, 4.5, 5 years now we've been working on this site. I wish I would have been able to show you what I needed to show you, which is the RF maps, but I was told I couldn't, and the coverage needs and the photo sim. So we would propose to try to get 2 variances within this project. One of them was within 2,000 feet of the city flagpole, and we're at 1,300 feet. But the code says that you may grant that variance if they're both stealth, and they have landscaping and masonry walls and those things, and we comply with all that stuff.
Vincent, your time's up. Sorry. Next up, we have Stephanie Alguin. What is it? Hey, I'm trying.
That's okay. Hi, my name is Stephanie Olguin. I live in Helotes Park Estates, and thank y'all very much for hearing me. I live at 12910 Diamond K Trail. I am opposed to the Verizon cell tower. And the reason why is, for a couple of reasons, is number one is the property value, how it may affect us someday if we decided to sell our property, as well as the aesthetics view of it. Seeing what he proposed before was the cross, there's still a base there, and knowing that I would have to go past that base and see that base is still a problem for me. I moved to Helotes 3 years ago so that we could live in this small town and just enjoy the charm of it. I believe it would be taking away from it, and for that, I am against it. February 8th, also, this was similar, was El Paso. In El Paso, the Verizon also tried to have a tower at a church there as well. And they were able to get votes from residents in the neighborhood who signed a petition, and about 28 people, and then they denied it. So I'm against it. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you, Stephanie. Next up, Judy Reichert. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Judy Reichart. I live at 10754 Bar X Trail for 41 years. That's a long time. I am an active member at Forest Hills Presbyterian Church, and our activity center / gym is accessed by a variety of people, namely children that do team sports, volleyball, basketball, etc. We've also used the land at Circle A and Bar X, the clear property, for football and volleyball. Those are all by other entities, not our church members, and we love that. So we would certainly like to continue to do those things. We support 3 scout troops, and let's see, what is it? But we do have to have funds to take care of our infrastructure. The children try to be careful, and we appreciate that, but things happen. And so if we don't have the funds to take care of our infrastructure, you know, it's not going to last very long. I hope you will take this into consideration, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Judy. James Moulton. Welcome, James.
My name is James Milton,
Milton.
and I live at 10511 Rockingham Trail. I'm about 50 yards directly in front of where the antenna is proposed to go, and I'm very opposed to it. I'm afraid that this is a way for the church to go get some money for supporting the church to keep on running. And that's the only reason that the church is concerned about this. We know the Presbyterian Church has had an issue with membership for quite a while. And I know my mother-in-law is Presbyterian. She's having trouble in Fredericksburg with the same kind of financial support in their community. I don't want to drive past a stealth 100-foot tower. I don't know how you hide a 100-foot tower. And I think it's going to affect my property value. I'm just really opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Next up, we have Veronica Barrientos. Am I close? She's here? Come on down. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Veronica Barajas, and I live on 13710 Flying W Trail. And our family has loved living in Helotes Park Estates. We've enjoyed walks in the neighborhood, and one of the things that we truly enjoy is when we take a walk, we enjoy the nature. Now, we notice that when we go up to the top of Circle A, we see more and more rooftops, but we still feel that within our neighborhood, it's still like the old Helotes. It's heartbreaking to think that going into our neighborhood, that's going to be the first thing that greets us. When we would be greeted by trees and the beautiful landscape, it's just an eyesore, and it's something that detracts from the beauty of the Helotes that we know and that we fell in love with.
Thank you. Andrew Height. Welcome, Andrew.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening. My name's Andrew Hyde. I live at 10410 Lazy F Trail. I'm here to vehemently oppose this variance. I would like to ask Mr. Villanueva, I assume you would want one of these towers in the entrance of your development. Mr. Mayor, you'd like to have one in front of your development. Ms. Massey, you'd like to have one in front of your development where you could see when you drive home every evening. City Administrator, you'd like to have one in front of your development as well. I'm sure all of you would like to have one of these in the development of your home when you enter home every day and see it there. I'm just enamored. I don't know why this would be happening. And then when I read it and I find out that it's a church, the first thing I do is I think, wow, let me call my mother. Let's get some divine intervention here, because, you know, my mom, oddly enough, is a ordained Presbyterian minister. And I'm like, Mom, how can this be? This is a church. This is the person that's supposed to be looking after the community. And my mom's been here visiting me and gone to this church, and she really enjoyed the services, and it was a very nice church, and I know they do a lot of things. I see the big hall. I see the kids out there playing football and everything. And I'm sitting there, Mom, I don't understand. You know, this is a commercial enterprise coming with a church. You know, is there a legality, if not at least a morality issue that we need to be concerned about here? Why would they be doing this? Why would they be wanting, you know, and she goes, well, you know, there's probably revenue, but yeah, you do wonder about, is there a morality thing that they ought to be thinking about? Is it best still serving the community? That should be their number one priority, is what is best for the community, what is best for the people that live here. And that's what I hope that all of you in this council think about every day. We do not have a homeowners association because we were here pretty close to first. So that's what we rely on, every one of you in your votes in granting or not granting this variance, is that you consider that these ordinances are here for a reason, and I hope you uphold them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Jim Pollock. Did I get that right? Jim Pollock? Was I close?
Yeah, Pollock, yes.
Good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council, for hearing us out. My name is Jim Pollock. I live at 2991 Pump Station Road in Wimberley, and I represent the applicant in this case. And I would just like to add on what Mr. Hubinger mentioned earlier, that Verizon is trying to provide coverage to this area. We do have a hole in coverage and lack of capacity. And I know, you know, people will hold their phones up at times and have full bars. And I don't think that what they realize is that capacity is an issue. And as the area grows, there will be times, peak times, when you need the phones for emergency situations and so forth, that the coverage is not going to be there. So we do feel like it's an important, it's, you know, critical for the neighborhood as far as emergency services. There's a big percentage of E911 calls that are placed through cellular devices and wireless devices. It's critical that those work during peak times because that's typically when accidents occur. And a lot of people, I guess, don't realize that heart monitors are functioning nowadays. It's not future Star Wars stuff. It's, you know, today's world. Heart monitors are monitored through wireless services, and blood pressure monitors, and it's, I don't believe that people realize how critical it is to the, for medical needs as well. So, we're trying to partner with the neighborhood and try to find, come up with a design that's the least intrusive. And we felt like a stealth design, would be it. So, be the least intrusive for the neighborhood, and we just hope you'll consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Garcia. Welcome, Diane.
Good evening. How's everybody doing? Good? Having fun? I'm here because I just bought my home at 13002 Diamond K Trail, right behind the Dairy Queen in that area. And I bought it because I bought it because it was so beautiful out here in Helotes. And I'm near all my children are moving here into Helotes. They have their office downtown Helotes. We just don't want a big old tower there that could possibly, have health problems for our children, or just because of the way it looks. I'm sure that if you, get together and have a meeting, you can figure out where to put this that someone, that will be not detrimental to our homes and our home values. After all, someday I may want to sell that home. It'll be part of my retirement because I'm a senior citizen and, I just can't afford this to happen. So just want to say that. And as far as the church, I'm really good at fundraising. If we want to do a fundraiser, I'm going to give him my card. And I'm sure that we can do something as a community, because I know that the enticement is big, but there are other areas. And I thank you for your time. Okay.
Thank you, Diane, and welcome to Helotes.
Thank you.
Connor Dotson. Welcome.
My name's Connor Dotson. I live at 10502 Rockingham Trail. We are one street over, and if you jumped the fence and went through my neighbor's house right behind me, we'd be looking at that wonderful tower. But if you walk out my back door, we'd be looking at that wonderful tower, and I'm being very sarcastic when I say wonderful. I'm vehemently against this tower. It's absolutely going to drive prices down. We've looked over and over again across the entire country with multiple lawsuits, winning against property owners who have outsourced and allowed this to come in. I thank the council for being a representative of its constituents' voices. The people before you have put you here to represent us, not Verizon or other business interests first, us first. I'd like to know when the council is actually supposed to vote, because if there's a possibility of it being against us, the people who you represent, I would like to be able to defer that timeline to try and get some kind of representation to say, look, this is definitely going to devalue this. There's always some kind of professional way we can get that kind of evaluation. And if they're looking, because all of the kids over at O'Connor are using so much bandwidth with their cell phones, build it on the other side of the OC property. Go build it over at the fairgrounds. There's plenty of land around here that's commercial land that can be utilized. They can go before the school board. I'm a Northside graduate. My wife's a Northside graduate. Our boys are Northside graduates. So that's a way that we could probably get somebody else to come in and have an opportunity to go elsewhere with this. Do not build it out there. It's ridiculous. Thank you for your time.
And to answer your question, Connor, it'll be up later in the agenda for discussion and action. Brenda Sanders. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Brenda Sanders, and I live at 10614 Bar X Trail, which my property directly butts up against the Presbyterian Church. I will be the first impact of this thing that they want to do against our neighborhood. I don't care how much they want to disguise it. You can a rattlesnake disguises itself in the terrain, and it's still just as deadly. And this will be deadly to me. My husband died of cancer 20 years ago. I don't want to be a person that's going to be affected by this environmental hazard. I don't want my property to go down. I don't want the noise. I don't want to have to listen to the noise, the maintenance of having this to be done. And then there's also the caveat of this tower coming in. How many more other towers are going to want to come in? How many more aesthetics of this sign and that sign of this tower is it going to be? I put up with a lot from the church as a neighbor. They come in with the band and play. They do their DJs. I have to call the city police to ask them to stop. This is just one more thing to hurt me. I've been hurt by this church for 22 years. It's hard being their neighbor. And I'd like for you to ask, be considerate of my life, my health, my well-being, my property value, and help me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Russell Barales. Am I close? Russell? Looks like B-A-R-A-J-A or E-S. Ah, great.
I'll make you say it like my coach, Barajas.
Got it.
So it's,
State
I'm
your-
part of Helotes.
Go ahead and state your name and
Barajas, or Barajas for y'all. I live at 13710 Flying W. I've been part of Helotes for about 20 years almost, and I'm grateful for it. When I talk to people, I've been in research, I've been in all kinds of places all my life, but the main thing is when I tell people I live in Helotes, you get the biggest response of, wow, that's a nice place to live. And I know you know that because I know that, okay? And I work for Northside School District, and I understand the church's concerns because I go to a church, and I go to a faithful church, and I understand about tithing and everything. And I want you to understand that this community is really important to everybody here. The antenna that y'all are gonna bring supposedly, and for revenue for the church and all that, but it's a distraction. We have to listen to our people, and you are the ones we come to for that need and that help. So I'm hoping you guys will understand that I'm not for it. I enjoy walking in the neighborhood. I know quite a few people in the neighborhood, and we always brag how great it is to live in Helotes. I've seen lots of changes, and I know that there's more to come. But one of the things that I really, really don't like is the antenna. Okay? And it's the truth. You know they're an eyesore. You know that there's nothing you can do. You can't put a picture in front of it. You can't put a massive tree around it. And I understand that. And I understand about the cellular company, and then they're trying to understand for profits and all that. But we're a community that is beautiful. And I enjoyed knowing that the Boy Scouts here to listen, and I hope you learn. But we have to stand up to our council in our city to say, hey, we want our community to look nice. I like when people tell me, wow, you live in Helotes. Oh, yeah, I live in Helotes. I'm proud of it. I don't know about the rest of the people here, but I'm proud of being in Helotes. And I like y'all guys, so y'all doing a good job. So I hope you listen and hear the voice of the people, because there's majority of people here don't want that tower. And believe me, I have a lot of more important things to do in my life right now, just like you guys, but this is not one I want to see is a tower in front of my neighborhood, because that's where I walk every day. And my good excuse for walking is to go to the Dairy Queen. So that's a hard egg. Now I want to see a tower, but I definitely would love to see Dairy Queen all the time. But thank y'all, okay? And I know it's a hard decision, but I'm hoping you listen to the people.
Thank you, Russell. Well, I have no idea but it looks like Jan, Y-B-A-N-G, maybe, or Young? Oh, John? Hey, you look like Jan. On paper, not in real life.
I've only known about this meeting since last night. I live at 10306 Bar X Trail. I am the first corner lot. This is going to be in front of my home. There was a gentleman earlier who told you, how would y'all feel if it was in front of your house? Luckily for you guys, you get to go home. You don't get to see it if this does go through. Unfortunately for me, I do get to see it, literally in front of my house. I appreciate you hearing me, first of all. Like I said, I just found out about this last night. This isn't completely new to me. I think we really need to get a real estate professional to come in here and tell us what it's going to do to our property values, what's going to do to mine, my neighbors, y'all's buildings. What other alternatives can we have? Where else could this go? Because I've been here for almost 4 years, and I came here like everybody else. Small, beautiful community. Everybody loves it. What is this going to do to us? This huge eyesore that they say they're going to stealth. What are the drawings? What is it going to look like? What is the base going to look like? Is it going to have outriggers? They're talking about putting a track around it. These are things that I think everybody needs to know before we can proceed forward. And I think right now, I completely oppose it. I mean, somebody was saying earlier that it was 74% of the closest person they don't want to buy your house. I read research that says 95% says, that means who's going to buy my house? Who would buy it? I'm right in front of it. I think these are some of the things that you guys need to hear. I feel like this is the first of many meetings. I feel there's a lot more needs to come out, especially for myself, who is completely unprepared when I'm always prepared. I had no idea about this. I think we're a long way away, in my opinion, from actually being able to make a decision in what's best, not for the church, but for our community. So I appreciate you hearing me, and I hope we get to speak about this many more times before you guys can make a decision. So thank you for your time.
Just to let you know, too, you should have received a letter, being that close, from the city.
Like every red-blooded American who gets mail and pays off the mail, pays bills, and I didn't get it.
I hear you. Okay. Brian Bentley, you'll finish this up. Brian, there you go. Welcome.
Welcome. All right. And to everyone here, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for this time. I reside at 13507 Flying W Trail, where I've lived for the past 8 years, and it's been great to live in Helotes. I could reiterate a lot of the points that everyone else has made. I think we're all in agreement. There are a lot of concerns about property value, health effects. But the thing that I would like to point out is, this tower, first of all, I'd like to make it clear, I'm very opposed. I don't think this tower, being in the location that's currently proposed, represents the image that Helotes wants to portray. One of the things, and I'll make this kind of short for everybody, but one of the things that I love about this community is the atmosphere that it portrays. You guys pride yourselves as being the gateway to the hill country. When you drive up Highway 16, which I do every day on my way home from work, you watch the sun setting over the hills, you look at the beautiful landscape, and you go, wow, this is a great place, right? This tower, 120 feet tall, 12 stories. If I remember correctly, there's nothing else around here that's that tall. You want to conceal it as a flagpole, you want to conceal it as a cross or something, but you can't ignore something that's 12 stories tall. It's going to stand out. So for all of the reasons that everyone else has said, health, property, just general dislike of the idea, but let's not put an image in front of a neighborhood, no less, when there are plenty of other commercial areas, industrialized areas already in existence where a device like this could be placed. Let's not put an image at one of the most, I believe, one of the oldest residential areas in Helotes. It's right out there for everyone to see when you first drive in. Here's the entrance to Helotes, here's a beautiful scene of the hill country, and a cell phone tower. So, I would ask the council, I would ask you, Mayor, please consider the opposition of your community to this variance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Once again, we appreciate, and that does conclude the speakers that signed up, we appreciate all of the comments. I know some of you sounded very frustrated, and I can understand that, but, and you ask, how can you let this happen? Just understand that this is the way the process works. Someone comes to the city, and they make a request. It's processed through. The public hearings are advertised. Everything is done. And then it finally comes down to a meeting like this where you're able to speak at a public hearing. And that's what it's all about. That's what makes this country so great. So again, congratulations for all of you coming down here and participating. I'm just curious, because like I say, we're usually speaking to an empty house. How many of you are at a council meeting here in Helotes for your very first time? Just raise your hands. See, that's terrific. And that just goes to show you, you have to pay attention and be involved, because I know I've lived here for 38 years, a little over 38, and some of the others maybe longer than that. Judy Reichert, 41 years. So there's a lot of old timers here. One of you mentioned we have to look at the next generation. That's a little scary for us senior citizens, because we realize we're not just talking one generation, we're talking a couple of generations down from us. So as an old timer, and I always tell people, 38 years, I always like to believe that once I'm here for 40 years, maybe I'll then be considered an old timer in Helotes, because there are multi-generational families here, and some that have been here 50, 60 years and longer. But it is important that you come. Always feel welcome. We'll always listen to you. And with that, I'm going to close this public hearing at 7:52. That brings us to our citizens to be heard. No one signed up for citizens to be heard, so we'll pass that and go right to the consent agenda. For those of you that are here for the first time, for the scouts and for those that are interested, a consent agenda in a meeting like ours is just a grouping of multiple items that are considered fairly routine city business by me and the staff. And it's presented to council with the hopes that we'll get a motion and a second to approve all the items in one fell swoop. However, council has the ability to ask questions, and if we can answer that question briefly, we'll address the question. Otherwise, they have the prerogative to ask for one of the items to be pulled. It'll be moved down into the agenda and discussed completely. Tonight, our consent agenda is items 4 through 6. And so at this time, I'll ask council, are there any questions or requests to pull any of the items 4 through 6? None? Okay, then I would ask for a motion and a second to approve consent agenda items 4 through 6.
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve consent agenda items 4 through 6.
We have a motion from Baez. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Villanueva. So we have a motion from Baez, a second from Villanueva to approve consent agenda items 4 through 6. No questions or discussion being required. I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Consent agenda items 4 through 6 are approved. That brings us to the individual items for consideration. Number 7 on the agenda is discussion of and action on a request by Verizon Wireless for approval of a specific city council-approved use permit for the construction of a telecommunications tower and a variance to Chapter 98 zoning, authorizing a reduction in the required separation distance of 2,000 feet between telecommunications towers on property zoned neighborhood service District B2. I would like to point out to council that they have submitted a second request, and that is for setback variance, because the code requires a 50-foot setback to any adjacent property or property line, a structure or property line, and they're asking for basically a 30-foot setback from the back wall of their enclosure to the property line of those residential lots that are directly facing Bar X Trail. So that's actually going to be two setbacks that you'll be approving, and the allowance for the cell tower itself, or actually the specific city council approved use permit. So if I can have a motion and a second to discuss.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 7 as written.
We have a motion from Massey. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Buys. So we have a motion from Massey, a second from Buys. And I would like to point out that we have representatives supposedly from Verizon here. So if you guys have questions, we'll get them up here. If you want to see the PowerPoint presentation, I don't think it's going to have anything new in it, but if you'd like to see it, we'll certainly entertain letting them take care of that. Okay, Cynthia, it's your motion, so you're up first.
Mr. Mayor, I'm passing out a little statement of my view on this subject for all of you to have and be able to follow along. I attended the Planning and Zoning Commission's meeting on Tuesday. Although the commission voted 5-2 in favor of a variance to the proposed Verizon cell phone tower, I believe they did so with much ambivalence and without a grasp of the ramifications. One of the dissenters recognized that putting a utility at the entrance of an established residential neighborhood was a bad idea. Our homes are our biggest investment. Imagine what it's like for people to purchase or build their dream home only to later have an unwanted 120-foot tall cell tower installed in their neighborhood, or worse, next door. That is the scenario many in Helotes Park Estates are facing with this consideration, allowing a variance for the Verizon cell phone tower on the property of Forest Hills Presbyterian Church, a neighborhood church that abuts the Helotes Park Estates residential subdivision. I am opposed to the construction of this behemoth eyesore in this subdivision for the following reasons. The installation of this cellular tower would affect property values negatively. A survey conducted in June 2014 by the National Institute for Science, Law, and Public Policy in Washington, D.C. shows that homebuyers and renters are less interested in properties located near cell towers and antennas. Of the 1,000 survey respondents, the overwhelming majority of respondents, 94%, reported that cell towers and antennas in a neighborhood or on a building would impact interest in a property and the price they would be willing to pay for it. And 79% said under no circumstances would they ever purchase or rent a property within a few blocks of a cell tower or antenna. In another study conducted in 2006, the global professional organization, the Appraisal Institute, indicated that homebuyers would pay 10 to 20% less for a property if it were in close proximity to a cell phone base station. This opinion was confirmed by a market sales analysis which showed prices of properties were reduced by around 21% after a cell phone base station was built in a neighborhood. Helotes Park Estates is the second oldest subdivision, established in the 1960s. It is a historic subdivision with a variety of custom-built homes, with many valued over $1 million. I would like for my fellow council members to consider the aesthetic appeal of having a 120-foot tall cell phone tower with a 16,000 square foot base that includes a noisy generator and electrical hookups at the entrance of your subdivision. Cedar Springs, Los Reyes Canyons, Helotes Ranch Acres, indeed any of our subdivisions. I am sensitive to the fact that our churches do much for our community, and Forest Hills Presbyterian Church is no exception. However, our duty as elected officials is to seek the common good and welfare of our citizens. The majority of those church members who signed the petition in favor of the cell phone tower are not residents of Helotes, and I found only one who actually lived in Helotes Park Estates. The financial benefit that the church would receive by leasing their property to Verizon cannot and should not be our concern. Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996 regarding wireless tower siting policies is clear that our city can enforce our zoning ordinances as long as they do not unreasonably discriminate between different providers of personal wireless services. Our ordinance on standards for transmission towers and antenna require a distance between transmission towers of more than 2,000 feet, and it is not unreasonably discriminatory. The proposed tower is approximately 1,300 feet from the closest tower here at City Hall and therefore requires a variance. Additionally, the 50-foot setback regulation for residential zones is not unreasonably discriminatory. The rear property of the church is zoned R1, residential, and the distance of the proposed cell tower is approximately 40 feet from the adjacent property line. Verizon approached other commercial property owners in the vicinity of their desired location, and only the church gave a positive response. Why? Commercial property owners are aware that installing a cell phone tower will lower their property values and make their property less appealing to prospective buyers. It is my hope that Verizon can work with the city, state, and our federal government to place their tower in a more appropriate location. The Telecommunication Act requires the federal government to take steps to find ways to accommodate licensees who wish to erect towers on federal or state property or to use state easements or rights-of-way. The act does not force municipalities to disregard non-discriminatory zoning ordinances to accommodate a business. For these reasons, I am against granting any variance for the Verizon cell phone tower on the property of Forest Hills Presbyterian Church and respectfully urge my fellow council members to support a vote of no on this agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. If you would, just don't applaud. She's just doing her job. Thanks. Bert, you're up. It's your second.
Well, Councilmember Massey pretty much covered the way I was thinking. I really mulled this over because I have friends and acquaintances that go to the Presbyterian Church, and they really do help the community a lot. But our job as elected officials is to do what is right for all the citizens of Helotes, not just a select few, and that's what makes our job so difficult. I would hope that maybe we could get together with Verizon and maybe find a more appropriate area for this cell phone tower. Somebody mentioned out where the business area over there by maybe by Tractor Supply or in that area, something like that. I think there's a way to still do this, but it's not appropriate in my mind where it is, where it wants to be located now. I wish there was a way in my mind I could vote for the variance is now, but I just can't do that. So maybe we could work with Verizon and find a more appropriate spot. That's all I had.
Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A lot was said with the pastor about fundraising and how difficult it is. As president of the Casa Helotes Senior Center, I can sympathize with you. It's tough. To be able for us to put $10,000, $12,000 in the bank, pay our staff, pay our overhead, it's a difficult task. And I can certainly appreciate you looking for ways to generate that revenue or the donations, and applaud you for all your efforts and all you do in the community. I have two issues. I mean, number one, this Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act, as Councilmember Massey brought up, you know, we have to look at that, and we also have to look at the existing code. And in my opinion, I can't see putting this type of tower in the middle of that community or behind the Exxon. I wouldn't like it in Los Reyes, where I live, down the road. I know there's I believe two cell towers up 16 if you were to travel up Whippoorwill, up high. But because of the tree and the foliage, they're almost non-existent, but they're there. My hope is that Verizon will continue to look in and around the community and find a better, suitable spot for this. So in my opinion, I'm not in favor of the variance or granting the variance, okay? Thank you.
Paul?
A lot has been said. I kind of agree with that.
I am opposed to putting the cell phone tower at the entrance of a neighborhood. I am not in favor of the variance. I think that the cell phone tower would detract from the appearance and the feel that we're looking for the city of Helotes, and so for that reason, I do not think I can support the variance. Thank you.
Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with the rest of the council and most of the audience as well. My first time I heard of this was over the weekend when a citizen caught me in Walmart and said, "Have you seen this?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't. I don't know where it's coming from. I saw the letter, and it surprised me. I didn't immediately know the place it was located, but I knew that right there was not the right location. I thought, right there. I, like all of you, moved to this area or chose to stay in this area if you grew up here because we have a unique opportunity to have a beautiful view. And I don't appreciate a lot of things that come before the council, not just the cell tower, but I think my fellow council member knows that I'm the advocate to say, keep the signs lower, don't make them too tall, keep them out of the view. If I could get CPS to put all the power lines underground, I would, but, that to me is part of what happens, to a community. When you drive down Bandera Road or you go into any other major thoroughfare, and let's face it, Highway 16 is a major thoroughfare. If it's not there yet, it will be soon. We can avoid the look of clutter and the distraction that comes along with way too much in our vision other than the trees and the sky and that which we all appreciate when we move out here. And I don't really worry about what you put on top of it. The answer is it's still a pole. When you look out, I live in a flat part of the town. I'm in Cedar Springs, and so I don't get to see the beautiful scenery that some of you that live up in that neighborhood get to see every day. But I could probably end up seeing it maybe even from my neighborhood. And the last thing I would want to do, when my kids were younger, I would drive up to the top of the hill and I would say, look, and we would look at the scenery, and I wouldn't want a pole sitting in the middle, regardless of what's on it. I'm sad that we happen to have one here in the city hall, but it's done, it's finished, but it's also very far away from everybody else. There's plenty of opportunity to put a pole within the range that Verizon showed on the screen that they didn't bring up tonight because it wasn't appropriate. But they showed a large circle that had a lot of area that they could put it in. And I don't think they did as much as they could have to work with either the city or the school or Vulcan or anywhere else and still provide additional service to the people. I sympathize the business need to have that ability. I'm not going to predict anything because I'm not certainly in the mobile business, but I can tell you 5 to 10 years from now, hopefully technology is to where you won't necessarily need a tower like that. But once it's up, that contract is probably going to run for 20, 30 years, and that tower's going to stay there even if the technology changes. I don't think this is the right place for it, and I can't support it.
Okay, any follow-up? Cynthia?
No, thank you.
Bert? Ed?
No, sir.
Paul?
No, sir.
Anything else? Okay, I did really start looking at this, and I'd like to just, Vincent, if you would come up, I've got some questions for you. And I'm doing this, I see the drift of the way I think the council's going, but I do have some questions that I think need to be addressed, and some points, new information that I came up with today that I think the council might be interested in, so that's why I'm going to spend this short time, hopefully, here. I noticed on your application, you're the agent for Verizon.
Yes, sir.
And it says right here on our application that you're supposed to attach a letter of authorization from Verizon showing you and giving you the authority to represent them here at this meeting and the planning and zoning, but that's not in our packet, and our staff did not have one. Do you have a letter authorizing you to be the agent for Verizon?
We should have had that letter within the application.
That's a letter from the church, the owner of the land. We need
I did
an
also have
authorization.
the-
You're an agent for Verizon, so we would need that authorization. Do you have one?
Not with me, but I do have one, yes, sir.
Okay, we would need to have that submitted to the city.
Okay.
To
no
make your
problem.
application
I'm
legitimate.
surprised that wasn't in there.
You state in your letter that this tower will be inconspicuous to the general public. and I agree with many of the people out there. I don't see how you can make that statement, because as you can see in that picture, it's far from inconspicuous. So I think that point was well made by the people out there. You state also that Crown Castle Communications did not have room on their tower and would not be able to accommodate your equipment. Do you have any kind of documentation from them that states that you have discussed with them that possibility and that they don't have space?
We do. We did go through that process of contacting Crown to see if there's any room on that structure back there, and they only had one small ring left, which was the lowest one. Verizon needs at least 6 to 9 antennas, and that would not do. Looking at structural modifications to that, it would fail, so we didn't want to put that in jeopardy. And that's when we looked at the ground space as well, and there wasn't enough room on the ground for the Verizon equipment. So the discussion turned then, Mayor, to possibly another tower on the city side.
Okay, that was another thing that bothered me. You put in both letters, you said that you had discussed that possibility of an additional tower on the municipal grounds, but we're told the city was not interested. Staff tells me that they gave you specific information that they would need to be able to bring that potential solution to the city, and that you guys never responded.
No, we have an email from the city manager saying they don't support it. There's no support to it in November of last year. I can provide that for you if you want.
It'd be interesting to see that.
Sure.
Then I noticed on your plans, you show no structure within the rock wall enclosure. You have no enclosed structure. It's going to be just that open, the generator and that other equipment. Is that correct?
It is, yes, sir. It's outdoor equipment, basically some cabinets and some battery backups, and the whole site would be powered by CPS Energy. The generator there is emergency power only, and it would come on after the batteries were gone off for 4 hours. So it's an emergency, somewhat of a catastrophe situation when power has gone out for at least 4 to 6 hours, that we could still use our phones in case those situations occur.
But that would be tested on a regular basis, say weekly? I know we do that here at City Hall.
It would be tested once a month for 10 minutes during an afternoon hour, and I think they use the 60 decibel generator in there, so once a month for 10 minutes it would go off.
Okay, your detail on one of your plan sheets shows that, and even though the notation's on there that your drawing is not to scale, the way I looked at it and interpreted it is you're showing an 8-foot wall, rock wall surrounding this structure, but it also shows in your drawing that the ice bridge and trapeze assembly, the open equipment that's there extending above the wall, and the generator will actually be above that 8-foot height. Is that the way I'm seeing the drawing, the way it's actually going to be?
It's slightly above, the ice bridge would be slightly above the wall, I believe, but we had proposed at Planning and Zoning Commission that one of the questions that we talked about during that hearing is landscaping. During the pre-development conference, we talked about landscaping being supplied for the building permit stage, but not at this stage. So we accepted any responsibility of or providing landscaping around the masonry wall as well to screen just about everything, including some trees if you needed it.
Yeah, that would be nice, and I don't know if they'd be that tall initially, but would you be able to build that wall higher if the council would vote to approve these things?
Higher than 8 feet? If it's
To hide that
necessary.
equipment? Okay, a couple of last questions here. If space was available on the tower at City Hall, how many levels on the tower would you need for your equipment? Did I hear you say you have 6 or 8 antennas? How many levels actually on the tower?
They do, when you're doing a stealth enclosure like the flagpole behind us, you couple 3 at a time in one center line, then you go down to another 3. At the first installation over here, we would need 6. In other words, 2 layers or 2 levels of antenna for startup, and then we'd potentially have some more canisters reserved for another carrier should they want to come in and supply Helotes with some coverage as well.
Yeah, I just decided I'd go ahead and contact them today, and I talked to one of their folks, and then I texted with another one. And they were able to do some research for me just this afternoon. And they said that they're at 60% capacity, but they only had one level left. And that just was taken by somebody this week. So they have had one level available. What troubles me is that in checking with their main office, they couldn't find anybody that had a record that you guys had contacted them about working out something on their tower. Do you have some documentation for that?
I'm sure there is. The real estate team would contact the project manager. Crown has a project manager for Verizon in San Antonio, and they would start discussions, initial discussions on application to put their facilities on a Crown tower. Immediately, if we only see one section available and we need at least two, possibly three, that application probably wasn't filed, so it was quickly gone to a second option, which was to try to come to the city and build maybe another flagpole.
Okay, well, I found it interesting because they were very receptive to offer the possibility or the potential for a second tower here on the municipal grounds.
They were?
Yes.
So were we. So were we.
Yeah, but this one would be one that would actually fit in the existing enclosure, and they could make it pretty much any height. I thought that 150 feet to match the other one would be appropriate if that's possible. I don't have a definite yes. I'm just tossing it out so council and the folks here will understand that there are other options, and I found out about them in a couple hours this afternoon. But, and I also asked them if they would build it like the other one so we could fly a Texas flag like we used to. And they said, sure, they'd already talked about that before they got back to me. So I do want you to know, and the folks here, that there is another option if it is absolutely essential for you guys to have some way to increase service and a tower. And I think that might be a little easier or palatable solution for everybody to just have a second pole out there and be able to once again fly the Texas flag. And they're going to get back to me with a time frame, but they said that we should be able to bring it back if council would like to hear a second proposal within 2 to 4 weeks. If it's longer than that, they'll let me know, but they think they can have something within 30 days. So I'm hopeful that council will consider that also. But it just disturbs me that some of the things in your letter don't seem to be really accurate with the information that I have right now. So I'd like to see that additional backup information that you said you had.
We can provide that, but yeah, the statements in there regarding talking to Crown are accurate. If you're saying that you're able to provide ground space for, I think that site is full, isn't it right now, Rick?
Which site?
The AT&T site is full, there's no room inside the lease area?
I did not talk to Crown Castle.
Actually, Crown Castle representatives told me today that they do have adequate room in there for a second tower, and it wouldn't interfere with the existing tower.
But we'd have to put our equipment in there too, sir, so I don't know if both would fit. But we're certainly willing, and that's what our second option was to try to do.
Yeah, and they said they'd be glad to work with you guys. Again, none of this is definite. It's just, it seemed like a very valid possibility, just so council will know, and the other folks that we're not ignoring the need maybe for a tower.
Right.
But certainly not the way you guys are proposing it is what it sounds like. So anyway, I appreciate your answers.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, any follow-up to what I just said, Cynthia? Bert?
Can I ask him one more question?
Sure.
I'm sorry, should have. Is the elevation at what it's being built at, the proposed tower at the church, is that critical? Because of the way the transmissions go out, from what I've read, they go out like in a pie shape and they go straight out horizontally. Is that
That's
correct?
that
So is the elevation going to be critical if you can't do it here? they'll have to find another place at possibly the same elevation?
Potentially, at least at 120 feet if.
But no, I'm talking about the base.
The base, if the base remains the same, it can be 120 feet. If the base increases, then it can be shorter.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed, anything else?
No follow-up, thank you.
Paul?
No, sir.
Okay, again, on this, the action would be first to approve a specific city council approved use permit. Then there would be two additional actions to be taken. One, to grant a variance for the separation distance being less than 2,000 feet. And then the second variance would be for the setback, reducing it from 50 to 30 feet from the wall on the back of this proposed structure to the back of the residential lot property line. So a nay vote would take, first of all, we'll take a vote on the specific use permit. If that is denied, then the variances really aren't necessary. So first question is to approve or deny the specific city council approved use permit. So a aye vote will be to approve it, a nay vote will be to deny it. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no.
No.
Okay. The specific use permit and variances are denied. That brings us to number 8. Discussion of and direction on a request by B.R. Anderson Jr. for approval of a pole sign. So if I can have a motion and a second. Thanks, guys. Good luck. That's okay. No. Discussion and direction on a request by B.R. Anderson Jr. for approval of a pole sign. If we have a motion and a second, please.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we, which one is it?
Number 8.
Make a motion that we discuss and give some direction, agenda item number 8.
Y'all would please hold it down. Thanks again for coming.
I'll second it.
You seconded?
For the record.
Man, you just blink your eyes and the room is empty. This is how it usually is. Actually, normally, you guys would be considered a crowd. Okay, so we have a motion from Buys, a second from Blue. So, Bert, it's your motion, you're first up.
It's, as far as I can tell from the literature that we've been given, that the owner wants to try to get some more signage out there on the highway, on Bandera Road. And it looks like he wants to do something like what the Helotes Historical Society picture shows. But in my mind, that's still a pole sign, and it's still too tall. So, has he come up with anything that
No.
that he's proposed? He has
No.
not?
No,
So what are we trying to do here? Just tell him to follow the ordinance?
it's up to you.
Mr. Mayor, I guess.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Just a second.
I'm sorry. Well, then go ahead.
Okay, let Alex.
Yeah, because he was at the meeting. That's why I wanted someone to speak. He was at the meeting.
He's what?
He was at the meeting,
Oh, really?
the P and Z meeting.
Yeah.
So was I, but I want him to speak.
Okay, well, he's the liaison.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
we'll let him speak. Okay, Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, the planning is, this item came before Planning and Zoning on Tuesday night, and the owner of the B-Daddies was present there and made an impassionate plea for really direction. He wasn't actually asking specifically for something. There's not necessarily a variance request on our table, but it's for action and giving him direction on what we might entertain. Planning and Zoning was really very clear that they weren't going to entertain a pole sign. It was plain and simple, and he had a lot of very nice comments and in jest about when one of them asked him, well, what would you like? He said a 50-foot billboard. He said, of course, in jest, but I think if they'd said he would have had him, he would have taken him up on it. And I sympathize with the scenario that he has, because when you know where that restaurant is, for those who've been here a long time, it used to be Hickory Hut, and it's probably been 4 or 5 of them ever since. The owner of the building actually divided the building front and back, and so his address actually is in Old Bandera Road, and so he says he has trouble getting traffic to his side, which is the new Bandera Road side of it. And I sympathize with that aspect of it. I think, as one of our citizens who may or may not be present, is why do we have ordinances if we don't follow them? This is an ordinance that I believe that we should follow. We have very specific guidelines for our signage in the city, height requirements, size requirements. We have a lot of businesses who come with very impassioned pleas to say, I really need to be more visible, give me, and it runs the gamut. And I think you all know that I'm the one who says we shouldn't. We need to keep that there. I know that businesses, whether they're national chains or local, it's their business that can draw in it, not the sign for somebody who doesn't know where they're present. And I think that that's what we need to give him. Planning and zoning basically told him, go to work with staff, get a copy of the ordinance. Staff is very good at understanding what we will be willing to entertain. Work with them. They'll give you direction, but try to stay within our ordinance. Old Town does have different sign guidelines than the rest of the city. It has the ability to do pole signs, but only for directional purposes and at a very, very small basis, I think 20 square feet. This sign is considerably taller and considerably larger. And planning and zoning is willing to entertain a little bit of additional, but they still want it to be a monument. The problem with that is when you make a monument out of a sign that's 11 feet tall, it triples the size requirement because we count the entire size of the structure when it comes to the size of the sign, not just the wording at the top. I do sympathize with the property owner because when you drive down that road, especially when you're coming in from out of town towards Helotes, there's a whole clump of trees and a curve, and you really can't see it until you're right there. Coming the other direction, you have to be able to see it, but then you have to pass it and turn, et cetera. I just don't know that violating our sign ordinance is the right direction we should give him in order to do that, because again, just like one business gets an exception, then they use it as a precedent for the next one and the next one and the next one. So I am of the opinion that we stand with what planning and zoning told him, work with staff, come up with a design to present to us, and work really hard to comply with our ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, Cynthia?
So, we're supposed to give him direction, and I think that the planning and zoning did give him some direction to come back with some designs at the, in a month for the next meeting.
And that may be why he's not here tonight.
And he was amenable to do that. So,
Yeah.
I think that, I think the direction that he should have from us is to follow the direction of the planning and zoning commission.
Exactly.
Ed?
I don't have any further to add.
Paul?
No, it's all been said. I'm against the pole sign, but I like the historic nature of the sign, but it needs to go within our ordinance. I understand and I'm sympathetic to the need for him to be a little bit more visible, because I know that is a hard spot for a business owner, as we've seen. So I agree. Let him work with P&Z and staff to see if they can get something that's amenable to all.
Bert, any follow-up?
No, what did you say? I'm sorry, I'm going to ask Alex something. Right. What did you say, the reason he's not here tonight is why?
I don't know. I assume it's because he took the direction planning and zoning gave him and
Been
went
nice.
running with it, but it was already on our agenda, so it's up for tonight.
Okay, it'd been nice to ask him a
Anything
couple of
else?
questions. No,
Alex?
no, sir.
Ed? Cynthia? Paul? Okay, I just to address a couple of things, because I asked some of the same questions when I saw this agenda item initially. And I asked also, I thought it was very unusual that the variance request was there, but it lacked a variance request, other than just propose to revive the historical sign. And my statement to staff was that's not really a variance request. And they said that Anderson essentially had no ideas. He wanted planning and zoning and council to tell him what to do. Said, well, that's not the way it's done. It's a very specific application process. And was told that he didn't want to spend the money to make a proposal. and that's just, you know, other businesses make a proposal. I suggested just draw a sketch of what he needs to give you guys something to comment on. Also, the curve and the trees that you mentioned were there when he rented the property. Hickory Hut was there without a big sign for many, many years, and I'm assuming they had success since they were there for many years. So that's just my comments. It just bothers me when somebody comes in and is so vague in what they need and looking for direction. I did have a note here, no action, so there was really no motion and second required on that. So any other direction that you want to give this guy, other than just do what planning and zoning recommended and work with staff? And we'll hope that he comes back and does some of that. Okay, item number 9, discussion of and action on a request by Sherry Skeens for approval of a pole, freestanding, and wall signage.
Mr. Mayor,
So this is action. Motion and a second.
I move that we discuss and take action on this, number 9 as written.
Motion from Massey, do we have a second? Second. Second from Fredericks. Okay, Cynthia, it's your motion.
It was sort of the same situation. They wanted to have a pole sign, and on this one, I definitely agreed with planning and zoning. They did reject the request for the pole freestanding sign, told them that they needed to do a monument sign as, you know, as permitted. But they did approve the request for a wall sign for the property, on the condition that the entirety of the sign text be white. I think it had, what is the name of this again?
10 Oaks.
10 Oaks. It had 10 Oaks in white and then storage in orange. And it looked very odd. So they said, if you can put 10 Oaks storage all in white, it would look a little classier, I guess you could say. So that's basically, yeah, there he is. So they said to do it that way, and that's what they decided to do. So, I'm of the opinion that the planning and zoning made the right decision, and I would kind of go with their recommendation on this one.
Okay, thanks. Paul?
Yeah, I'm against the pole sign. If they want to do something along the sign lines that they had, or the monument sign, I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with the wall sign. Adjusting it to the all white is fine with me. So I'm okay with the wall sign. No pole sign.
Okay. Ed?
I'm good with the wall sign. I mean, that's great exposure of that other photo there. That's one right there. The pole sign now, we've got to stick to the code on that, the sign ordinances.
Bert?
Okay, the sign that's there already is the short sign, right?
Yes.
Is that one grandfathered? So if they just left it, they could just, they don't have to do anything to it because it's grandfathered, correct?
Excuse me.
Okay, now, the wall signage, the one that they're gonna do all in white, are they gonna still use that logo too? Okay, and then also another question, don't we have to allow a variance because instead of 36 square feet, it's 90 square feet?
No, the Planning and Zoning Commission actually approved the wall sign, so that's done. They have a 25% overage that they can allow, and that fell within the 25%. So that's been formally approved. What's on tonight's agenda is the pole sign.
It's just the pole sign,
Right.
okay, I'm sorry. All right. So have they indicated whether or not they're gonna keep what they have?
The pole sign?
The sign that's there already?
We'll let Alex address that
Oh,
one.
okay. All right, that's the question I had. That's the only thing I had left.
Okay, Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The action by planning and zoning was to deny the request for the new sign as presented. They really didn't take action on anything about the existing sign, and I don't believe that the question was asked of the property owner what they were going to do. The existing sign, while it is on a pole, is grandfathered, and therefore, there's really nothing we can do about it unless they decide to completely restructure that one, in which case then it would have to be for a variance again. Part of the reason, and I sympathize with the owner's request, it's under new management, new ownership, and What you can't see in this particular picture is that the property just this side of it has another sign that's grandfathered that was allowed to be put there when this particular location was in San Antonio's ETJ. And you may all recognize it when you know it's the one that talks about the driving range, the golf course up the street. And it's in violation of code multiple ways, but it's grandfathered. It's an off-premise sign, which we don't allow. It's a pole sign, which we don't allow. But there's nothing we can do with it because it was there before the ordinance was in place to govern this. That sign is there, and they feel blocks this sign, which is why they wanted to raise the sign to 11 feet tall to basically be seen above it. I sympathize with that request. I think that it's something that, you know, again, they knew that when they got the property. I've driven by that a lot of different times. I could still see the sign despite the fact that the other one is there. And I'm obviously opposed to pole signs as well. Thank you.
Okay, quick question. Did planning and zoning discuss anything about enclosing the poles like they have in the past with, say, Dr. Keepers out there and with some of the others where they say enclose the poles and it was allowed by you guys?
No, actually, I think this wasn't the one they talked about wrapping it, was it?
Yeah, it was.
They came up and said, well, obviously you don't like to see the poles, what if we wrap them with fabric? Or if we covered them with something, and that still doesn't make it a non-pole sign, it doesn't make it a monument sign. But that question came up, and in the end, the vote was just to deny the request for the new sign.
Okay.
That was really the action they took.
Very good. Cynthia, anything else? Follow-up? Paul?
No, sir.
Ed, any follow-up?
No, sir.
Bert? Alex? Okay, then we'll call the question. All in favor? Well, let me, this is the poll sign. So a yay vote will be to approve the poll sign. A nay vote or a no vote will deny it. So all in favor, say aye. All opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, the request is denied for the poll sign. That takes us to item number 10, which is back to our discussion and direction to staff and me on the sign ordinance amendments and total rewording in some cases. So this is discussion and action, or discussion and direction. No action is required. So we'll just start the discussion. Ed, would you like to start? Any additional things from last time?
Well, from last time, I reiterated my thoughts on something that Councilmember Byes brought up. I forget, I called them tall signs, right, Rick? I wrote Rick an email. I couldn't remember the name of those banner signs that are height, height. I've since looked them up, and I still don't recall the name of them. However, my thoughts were to allow those or permit those during special events. For example, the Festival Association or Carnival for the duration of the event, so from Thursday to Sunday. Get them permitted and with stickers that show that they've been approved by the city. I would very much like something like that for our food truck event at CASA. So I think we have a process in place already. I'd like to see if we could include those types of signs, again, just on a temporary basis. But I did send an email to the city administrator about that.
Okay, Cynthia?
Well, I'm waiting to hear what Councilmember Byes says on page 4 for the changeable electronic variable message signage. He had
Would
said.
you like for him to go now?
Yeah, could he go now? Because he said he was going to.
Bert?
What
As
certain
far as
instances-
as far as the CEVMS signs, I got, the take I got was that the council didn't want to do anything with that. I've been doing, I mean, am I right?
That's how I feel. but-
Yeah. That's I don't feel like I'm going to, it'd be worth doing the work, and I already said that I wasn't going to go into that.
Okay.
Okay, as far as the VIS flags and the flag and the wave and the blades, I have tried to find another city that allows this. I can't find any. Nobody allows those types of signs. But, I mean, Leon Valley being one, I'm not trying to diss our sister city down the road, but they have them everywhere. But they don't allow them. So to quote the mayor, I think it's like herding cats. I mean, how would we do this? I need some direction on it, if you guys would be amenable to it. Maybe on a weekend, we could allow, like we do with the banner flags, let them have it up for like Friday through Sunday or something like that. Is there any, you guys have any ideas about how we could do
It says
this?
here you're supposed to give us direction.
Well, I can't find anything. I mean, there's nothing I can go off of unless I just make it up myself.
Yeah, no,
You want me to make it up myself? I mean, I will.
okay, work on it.
Okay, all right, that's what you want.
Anything else?
No, sir, that's all I.
Cynthia?
No, that was, I'm glad that we cleared that thing up about the changeable variable thing, because I didn't want that. There's really, that was the only thing that I really thought was of interest to me. Oh, yeah, no, that's it. I don't have anything really to add.
Okay, Paul?
I guess on the flag/banners, is this just for nonprofits on the weekends, or are we going to allow commercial entities to use these banners on the weekends for short periods of time to advertise grand openings and stuff like that? I guess that was a question I had. Are we going to, is that what we're discussing?
Well, if I may,
Sure.
my email to city administrator, my recommendation was for nonprofits, directed at nonprofits. Just for the weekends, just at the duration of the event, if it's a day or, and like in the Festival Association's situation, it's Thursday through Sunday, and take them down. So I was directed at nonprofits. I didn't know if I want to get into a citywide public, for-profit, because I think that would get real messy.
So that's what we're saying, no commercials, so we're not going to allow it on Bandera Road for grand opening?
That's what he is recommending.
That's what I was recommending.
Okay.
You can change that, or you can agree with it, or you can stay neutral.
Is that the one on page 4? Is that the flag wave
Yeah,
blade? Is that the one we're looking at right now?
The teardrop or the
So it's
signs
number
and-
6. So
Well,
then you-
five and six are completely prohibited under this current ordinance.
Where are we at?
I'm trying to find it. So the proposal is to allow these feather vis flags for nonprofits on a weekend basis.
Feather, vis, flag, wave, blade, and teardrop banners are,
For nonprofits on the weekends.
yeah.
That's the
Councilman
proposal.
Villanueva's
Yeah, yeah.
comment is on page 6. If you notice throughout here, I put AB for Councilman Blue, PF for Councilman Fredericks, EV for Councilman Villanueva. So in order for staff to make a final document, we really need to have these issues resolved tonight as to whether we implement them or not.
We're still working on this, and I don't know that, it's going to be ready to bring back next time. I'm working on this area specifically, and I believe that it should be allowed for commercial. That's what we're going to propose to you guys for the final take on this, but only for a short period of time, 3 to 5 days maybe, and only to advertise a special event or a sale. I was at Marketplace this weekend, and I was talking to some people at one booth, and I noticed a banner flag at one of the food booths advertising Philly cheesesteak. And there's nothing offensive about it. If it's new, looks good, and it's only up for a few days, to advertise something special for that business or a grand opening or something, then I think it really needs to be considered, because as I had stated in my introduction to the initial suggested changes to the city ordinance, these didn't exist 10 years ago. They're very common today.
Can I see?
Leaving them up 365 days a year? No.
No.
I wouldn't agree with that. But a short, like you're saying, Ed, a short duration event, nonprofit or commercial, it should be fine.
How big is that? It looked kind of big. Is it because of the way you took the picture? How tall are they?
They're about 8 feet tall, so
Oh,
most,
8 feet
on
tall?
average.
They can be
what
up
I've
to
seen.
12, and
Yeah,
we're
they're-
working
they're
on that.
taller than
That'll be specified.
Daddy's, the barbecue place, so they could actually put one of those out.
It wouldn't
If
be,
they had
on a week.
No, but if they had some kind of.
See, but
Special
this
event.
is what the difficulty is. How do we regulate it? I mean, how many times can they do it? What's the height? I mean, the Gladiator people over there by the park, they put one out, put a banner flag out, and it's only up a few hours to show that they're out there and show people, new people, that they're there. They put it in the ground. Everybody shows up. When they leave, they pull it back out. It's like I said, it's like herding cats. How are you going to regulate it?
it needs to be addressed, though.
Yes, it does.
Just like signs in the windows, banners. You do the best you can to write the ordinance, and then you enforce it as you can. But it's the old, as you say, the herding cats aspect. You just got to try and keep up with it. But I think it's something that we need to, as a council, consider to help the businesses and nonprofits in the city. But we'll word it and we'll send it out to you beforehand so you can look at it.
Just throw this out there, like you said, for a special event.
Yeah.
So like Florist Country Store has a special event every Friday, every weekend.
See, that's the problem.
But they cost money to make. I mean,
Yes, they do.
It's the
Yes.
one thing, right? They have to buy several then if they're gonna, so, okay,
We'll send it out to you.
all right.
The other thing that
See, excuse me, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mayor.
It's okay.
But also, I mean, another thing you got to look at is how many can they have? Like Gavin Steele, when they had to take theirs down, they had like maybe 6 to 8 of them. He you know, but it's a big place, and he just had it out on the weekends to try to attract people, you know, driving up and down Bandera Road, because it's kind of off the road. But we made them take them all down because they're prohibited. I think that's detrimental to our businesses, in my mind. I haven't heard from Alex so yet, so, I mean,
Our poll guy.
I haven't been called on yet.
yeah, I'm sorry, Alex.
You know, you're right. I meant to save mine until everybody spoke, so I apologize for
I'm
that.
sorry, Alex, I didn't mean to.
But the way I was looking at it is have them spaced no more than 15 or 20 feet apart. We'll pick a number, and no more than 3 or 4, and we'll pick that number.
Yes, sir.
But we'll address all that. Alex, I apologize. I should have let you speak before I started making comments, so go ahead.
Well, that's okay, thank you. I figured I'd get my turn anyhow, somewhere along the line.
I might have forgotten totally.
No, I'd have stopped you.
Okay.
But as is probably not going to come as any surprise to you, I'm opposed to that. And the reason I am is because it is exactly the kind of thing that I talked about when we talked about the tower. It's exactly the same thing we talked about when we all talked about the pole signs, and I mentioned in there about the height of signs, et cetera, like that. This is and you mentioned what goes on in our sister city, Leon Valley, down the road. This is exactly the kind of clutter that I don't believe the citizens really want. I get that the businesses want more attention, but if I'm a competing business and I'm allowed 2, then my neighbor's gonna want 3. And if they get 3, then I want 4. Well, how do we regulate what a special event is? Are we gonna let them have 2 a year? We do that with banners. We regulate the banner length of time. So is this no different than a banner? And if that's the way we're gonna approach it, then we better do that. I don't know how in the world staff is gonna regulate this stuff. And we have to consider the fact that we can't let the cats out of the bag to herd them if we can't regulate it. And if we get in there and all of a sudden we're sending our code enforcement officer trying to catch flags all over the city, they're not going to be able to have the ability to do what they need to be done. I have no problem with this being a prohibited thing. I would encourage that we continue to do it that way. There was still a couple other things that I had a question, and with regard to the banner and the flag part, now, the note that was put here for Councilman Villanueva about the ability to have tall banners, is that tall as opposed to wide?
No,
Or
I did.
different type, are you talking about the little flappy things?
No,
or-
I didn't have the proper term, they call it feather banner,
Okay.
which are what Tom
Yeah,
Mayor just showed.
I've seen it called a banner flag.
Banner flag, feather, yeah.
Yeah.
different
So
kinds.
at this point, our ordinance only allows those really essentially at the one corner, and they're limited in number. Am I right? Is that not correct here? Oh, no, that's right. They can do, so if it's matter of just a taller one versus a wider one, as long as it complies with the rest of it and the number and the size and the frequency and placement and location and all that. But I still think that when we start going down the road, and I may be on the one end of the spectrum here, is that we open the door towards allowing more and more and more, and it's the clutter that I didn't move to Helotes for. And it's the part that what you do is you go down the road and you're just hit with all of these different things, tall, short, wide, everything. We have size requirements on our signs, and we get requests all the time to do that. And they're very sympathetic requests, and the businesses, yes, I know we want them to be in business and we need to help them, but I don't think we need to do that at the cost of the view and the look of our city. There was a couple other areas that I don't know that staff has gotten the right direction from us, because it was mentioned. My question at the last meeting was with regard to the banners at the Bandera Road and Leslie or Houseman, were we going to allow them on all four? Do you feel you have a direction on where to go with that? Or we're just, because right now it's only permitted in the ordinance on that one corner. Well, it doesn't say. Well, but they're only put up in front of Broadway Bank. Are we going to allow it to be on all four? I think we need to address that, because I think that's something that we have to make sure is clarified, so that we're not all of a sudden seeing a whole bunch of them in all four corners, and we're right back to that clutter that I was hoping to avoid.
Is the reason that there can't be is you had to get permission from the property owner.
Yes,
because
you
you don't
do.
own that property.
Right.
So maybe they've asked Bill Millers and they've asked the bank, and they've said, no, you can't do it.
Well, they also don't have the setup, but that doesn't mean they couldn't, and I think we need to address it before it starts happening, and then we're behind the curve.
Well, BBVA has made it clear they don't permit that on their property.
Well, it's also.
Broadway does.
It's also for sale. They may not be the owner of that property before too long, and then the new owner may very well say, come on, everybody.
Sure.
And that's why I think we need to address that.
So
And I know I took a lot of our time on the signs the last time, and I don't quite see all the notes, and I don't have my other notes, but I'm ready to move on, and we'll discuss it when it comes to a final vote. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Let's see, first up, we had Ed. Any follow-up?
Well, that's why I was, we could be here all night talking about this. But there is a process, and I think the process works. I think nonprofits are very responsible. I mean, we get the banner, we're told we can put it up for this time frame. We respect the wishes of the property owner, in this case Broadway Bank, and we take them down as quickly as we can. I don't see why we couldn't do the same with Feather Banner or the tall banners. There's already a process in place. But I did not want to get into anything other than nonprofits, because that would be too much.
Bert? Anything else? Cynthia?
So when this comes back, these are just comments and like, so the all four corners, we haven't discussed, do we want to limit it or not?
Well, that's what we're here for.
Well, are we going to limit it or not? I mean, because it's going to come back exactly looking the same thing. We still
Staff
have.
is looking for some kind of consensus of direction on specific items, and this would be one of them.
So let's put it this way. If we decide, okay, it can only be on one corner, but they can decide which corner. If the bidder's property, they say they can do it, then they can just do it there? Or is that, if we decide on one corner, we can't specify which corner?
Yeah, because we don't own it, yeah.
And the purpose for that is we don't want to, again, have a proliferation of signs all over, or banners on four corners.
If I may, that wasn't exactly my question. I was asking whether or not we should allow it on the other three corners at all.
Well, what do you
Because
think,
right now,
Mr. Signman?
well, I think we should allow it only on the one.
Okay.
And for the same reasons I've mentioned, I'm not going to go over again. But the people who want to put up a banner only are allowed one anyway. They're already restricted to one in quantity. The question was in location. And right now, there's only a certain number of banners that can be on that property at any given time before they start competing for space. So if we allow them on all four corners, then we can have 2 or 3 on this corner, 2 or 3 on that corner, and then all of a sudden, we're getting to where the intersection is more about banners and signs than it is about anything else and the scenery that we like. So I would prefer that we restrict it to what's already in use, rather than allow it to expand as those other properties develop and have that. I just think we need to keep it down.
I agree, because the other thing too is I think it's a safety hazard. If you start having signs everywhere, you could get in a wreck just looking at all the signs, you know? So,
I would like to see it, I would like to see it allowed on the, of course, where they're using them now at the Broadway Bank and also at the Bitter property. Because like, I mean, it's getting cluttered. There's hardly any room to put up a banner anymore because there's always something up there. That's my personal opinion. I would like to see us allow it at the Bitter property and at the Broadway Bank.
Just a thought, in the meeting that we had with Mr. Bitter, there's going to be hopefully a restaurant on that corner, and I doubt that he would.
Chicken?
Oh, God. You calling me chicken?
Part of the chicken
No,
strip. No, another chicken place. No, I'm sorry, sir.
That's okay. So we'll ask him what he thinks on that before we would put it into an ordinance.
Yes, sir. But I think that would be a good way to look at it. There might not even be room there for one there.
There's a lot of trees there.
Paul,
Yeah.
any
Hopefully they'll
follow-up?
stay.
If you're coming south, the place where they're putting banners now currently at the bank, you can see it good. You really can't see it too well coming north. So I think that's a bit of an issue. Whether they want to change that, I'm okay with putting it at Bitters because then you're getting it north and south.
Yeah.
I'll entertain it. I'll at least entertain the two. Whether he wants it or not, I don't know. Right.
Okay. I hesitate to say this, but Alex?
No, I'm
any
good for
follow-up?
tonight, thank you, sir. Because I could go on, but I'll stop.
Well, I have a couple other comments that I'd just like to toss out and hear what you guys have to say about it. But looking at the Old Town Special District sign regulations, in reading the ordinance, I think that when we're talking about the signs for Old Town, the intent was for Old Town along Old Bandera Road, not Bandera Road itself. And so I think that we need to make some consideration, or I would hopefully suggest that we make some kind of consideration that the things that would be allowed in Old Town itself on Old Bandera Road, wayfinding signs and the other things, should be considered differently if a property goes from Old Bandera to Bandera, that the signs along Bandera Road would be treated just like all the other signs along Bandera Road, not given special treatment because the property happens to go on Bandera Road, but it really faces Old Bandera, if that makes sense. So any comments on that?
Can I ask a clarification?
Sure.
So are you, because the Old Town sign ordinance isn't here, we don't have it in front of us.
It's part of it. So I think the sign ordinance needs to reflect that along Bandera Road, and this, I'm asking for your comments and consideration.
So are you suggesting that the rest of the city ordinance apply to the Bandera Road corridor, even that which borders the Old Town area?
Yes.
Or are you thinking that, yeah, okay.
I'm thinking that the Old Town Special District, the signage requirements for their creative signs is intended for that area along Old Bandera Road, maybe Riggs Road, not really Bandera Road. So Bandera Road should be treated in that area just like Bandera Road is in the rest of the city. Just looking for your comments and thoughts.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. I agree that it's not long from now that once the sewer and water goes in, that the Bandera Road corridor is going to be very different, and that there's going to be a lot of need for businesses along both sides of that road to expand, and they're going to come wanting signs.
And you'll actually have different rules for one side of Bandera Road than from the other.
The question, though, I would ask, and it would have to be carefully determined, is, and I'm looking at our city administrator here, how would we regulate which one applies? Or would they get to pick the choose whichever one they want? The reason I think that the Old Town sign ordinance is different is because we are a little bit more lax in many ways in that. However, not when it comes to size and height, but much more when it comes to creativity and that kind of thing, because it's a very different area. A perfect example would be, a lot of those properties along Old Bandera Road do face both sides. So does that mean that they would only be able to put the sign on the side, and how, where would you draw that line? Within 50 feet, 25 feet? I mean,
No, if
it could, what if it could be seen from Old Bandera Road, but is sitting on the other, I mean, that, to me, I think it would be a challenge. I agree. I think we need to consider, perfect example is B-Daddies.
Yes.
Right? It's a perfect example. We talked about it tonight. The gentleman is limited because even though he's on a 55-mile-an-hour highway, even though he said people drive by at 60, that he has to limit his sign information based on what is allowable in Old Town, which is a lot smaller and a lot shorter. On the other hand, we have the creative sign ordinance, which allows us to do an awful lot that the rest of the city doesn't get to do. And if we substitute the one, then a lot of those creative signs that we might see on the backside of buildings, et cetera, would then become prohibited because they're on the wrong side of the building. So I'm willing to entertain it. I think it's a good thing to do. We just have to be really careful how we word it.
Sure.
You're just talking about the signs actually on the road, not the signage at the back of the buildings, correct?
Correct.
Or the front, whatever you want to call them, the sides that
The
are facing
monument
Bandera.
that's
Road.
on
Freestanding
Bandera.
signs, that kind of
Freestanding.
monument type.
Because Alex brought up a good point. The properties that aren't in the Old Town District but are on Bandera Road, the other side, will have totally different sign regulations than the ones that are on the Old Town side that happen to run between Bandera Road and Old Bandera. The intent, I think, was when that was created, was that the business fronts Old Bandera Road, that's where the special district signage should apply, not on Bandera Road. This is just something that came to my mind as this B-Daddy sign came up, because when I asked staff, they said, well, special district is different, and that applies here. I said, well, it really shouldn't, because all the other people along Bandera Road have to apply to a different standard.
I think the direction too that was given to him was that he still needed to do a monument sign, but they might be willing to give him a few extra feet.
Well, they said,
As if it was, instead of a single business monument sign, it would be like for a multiple business, the height would be a little higher because of the extenuating circumstances of the property.
I saw that, and it said 12 to 15 feet, and a multi-tenant monument sign is limited to 12 feet. And that's
I thought that's what.
what I read
On Bandera Road, it's
on Bandera Road.
On Bandera Road, it's
Right.
15.
And that's what we're talking about. And it's not a multi-tenant business, it's just his business. And so that, I don't know how that applies. So anyway, it's just
That would be 8 feet,
thoughts that I have.
A monument sign for a single business is 8 feet.
Oh, I know why they did that. It was
Multi-business
because
would be
the
12,
fence-
except on Bandera it's 15.
The fence that he's gonna move, see, he wants to move where it is now, underneath the
Over the
tree
other
where
side of
nobody
the
can see it,
driveway.
to the other side, but there's a fence there. Didn't he say there was a fence there, and the fence is 5 feet tall? So even if you put it there, if it was about 8 feet tall, it would be 3 feet higher than the fence. And it was, so that's why they wanted to give him some extra feet, so that they could at least see the words of, this is Big Daddy's Barbecue. Anyway, it would, I guess, require a variance.
Right. Where it comes down to the variance.
Paul, any input on that?
No, I think both sides of Bandera Road should live by the same rules.
Yeah,
I
Bandera
agree,
Highway.
Bandera Road should look the same or have the same rules.
That it?
Yes, sir. On that,
I think I'm finished.
Bert, anything else on that? Ed?
No, sir.
Alex? Okay, one last thing on, and I have other things that I'm going to suggest to you guys working on this, but the off-premises banners, we don't really address that. I see it's mentioned here in the revised section, but it wasn't covered in the original sign ordinance. The other thing that is a little confusing is the way it's written now. It's 30 days each quarter for a banner. And it doesn't really specify whether 30 days can be broken up and someone could say, put a banner up half a dozen times for 5 days each over a period of a quarter or something like that. So we need to get a little more clarification in those kinds of things, and we'll bring that back to you also. So be ready for that. And we'll email that to you And we'll just keep working on this thing because there is a lot of room for improvement even still.
Well, can I say something about that? The way it's worded, are you talking about number 8?
I haven't really
duration?
looked that hard at this.
Well, it says 30
new one.
calendar days with a maximum of 3 banner permits, so that just says you can only put it up 3 times. Doesn't matter if you leave it up for 30 days or 1 day.
It's page 7.
It's not real clear on that, though.
Clear to
We'll
me.
just tweak the language.
Okay.
It may
All right.
not be clear to everybody.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, sir.
No more discussion? Okay, if there's no more discussion, then that is our last item, and we will adjourn this meeting, if there are no objections, at 9:04.